President Joe Biden is enlisting corporate media for his 2024 campaign, and he has some notes for reporters accusing them of being too nice to Donald Trump. Something the media is known for, of course. Now, according to Semaphore, Biden's re-election campaign has initiated a series of confidential visits for corporate media reporters and editors to their headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. The purpose, they say, is to engage with key officials, including the campaign manager, deputies, and senior advisors, providing background briefings on campaign strategy.
The campaign will also use these sessions as an opportunity to address perceived inaccuracies in media coverage. According to sources familiar with the matter, campaign officials have utilized a coverage spreadsheet to outline areas where they believe reporting, particularly on former President Donald Trump, has been lacking. The campaign expresses dissatisfaction with what they perceive to be an excessive focus on Trump's legal issues, emphasizing a desire for more attention to his recent provocative statements on the campaign trail.
RFK Jr. responded to this reporting, writing on X, "We might as well call it state-run media because that is what corporate media becomes when it takes instructions from the state." Just this past December, Biden lamented the media's coverage of the economy. Let's take a look.
About the economy, sir, what's your outlook on the economy next year?
All good. Take a look. Start reporting it the right way.
Mr. President.
So this is one of my favorite genres, the incumbent, and it happens with both parties, complaining that the media coverage is too negative. Obviously, Joe Biden wants the media to be celebrating more what he perceives as his considerable accomplishments and not have all this attention paid to the maybe recovering, but abysmal for some time state of the economy, all the disappointments that voters that you talk about have with his policies from a left standpoint, not being progressive enough, the dissatisfaction a lot of minority voters seem to have with President Biden, Muslim voters over the Israel situation, and so on and so forth, and then just even not particularly partisan or ideological voters seeming to not being able to stomach him being so old and manifesting the age question. But the media is covering it. Sorry.
But what's bizarre is that the specific editorial judgments that are being critiqued here aren't, oh, I wish you would talk more about the things that I've done for America in the last 3 years, or talk more about Trump being bad.
You're not beating up on Trump enough.
In the right way.
Yeah,
it's not even that you're not beating up on Trump enough. It's you're focusing too much on his legal woes and not enough on whatever provocative thing he recently said on the campaign trail. That
accusation is just frankly not true. The most recent controversial thing Donald Trump said, or that was crazy, was the idea that he was describing immigrants or damaging the blood of our country. That remark and the accusation that was out of Mein Kampf, that got wall-to-wall media coverage. It was a 2-week news cycle. I talked about it on I was on Fox's Media Recap Sunday morning show where we discussed it, and they played clips of all the other networks covering it as well. That one got some mileage. So I don't think you can fairly say that Trump is not being scrutinized for saying
that is true.
Things.
But I'm sorry. That is true. But one, Trump kept saying it. So that's why I think the cycle lasted longer than it would have if he had just said it once. I believe he said it twice. And then secondly, I think even though that did get covered, it felt like an anomaly. It's been dwarfed. Come on. It's been dwarfed by the coverage of 1/6 insurrection. Is he going to jail? Is he going to get stripped from the ballot? The Maine story, the Colorado story. I mean, all of that is part and parcel of his legal woes.
Well, sure. Those are big news stories,
and they are. And I don't frankly fault journalists for covering those stories, but Joe Biden's campaign is faulting journalists for covering those stories, perhaps because he thinks that what hurts Trump more is being framed as a racist who thinks that immigrants are going to ruin the blood of our country, as opposed to this legal stuff, which maybe has run its course in terms of how many people are going to flip from him. And I think that you're seeing, I don't think that that's necessarily true.
No, I don't think it's true at all.
But I think that you're seeing it strategically.
Not gloss over that.
When you look at Joe Biden's behavior, the fact that he made a choice to go to South Carolina, to go to Mother Emanuel Church, to clearly try to appeal to Black America by, I would argue, exploiting a horrible mass shooting tragedy that happened there by a white supremacist. I do think that they're an indisputable white supremacist. I do think that there is a clear choice by the Biden administration, by the Biden campaign to say, we think that Trump is most vulnerable when you tie him to Charlottesville. You see this in the ad choices as well. We think that he's most vulnerable when you tie him to white supremacy, when you tie him to Dylan Roof, when you tie him to the Great Replacement theory. And regardless of what we think about strategically, that seems to be what's going on and why he's leaning on the press to talk about that angle as opposed to he might be going to jail.
Yeah, that seems similar to the Hillary Clinton campaign strategy, frankly, the deplorables, et cetera. The idea, and the media they played ball with that narrative. We will portray Trump. I mean, I'm not saying portraying unfairly. He said a lot of incendiary things about immigrants, et cetera. Bad SHIT countries, that kind of stuff. But they covered that relentlessly. They thought that would be the thing that turned enough people away from Trump, is the rhetoric specifically surrounding race and some other things. It absolutely did not work in 2016. Some people will go further than that, say it not only did it not work, it backfired. I don't. Obviously, that was part of the Biden critique in 2020 as well. But my perception is that was not nearly front and center as it was for the Hillary Clinton campaign. It was more about basic competency and how bad the country had gotten, even frankly, over the last 6 months as COVID was enveloping. So it seems, and now they have this storyline, these tangible legal woes that, while they certainly fire up the right a lot, they've created a rally around effect for Trump, seem to. Again, whenever we do actual voting of kind of independent swing voters, people in battleground states, they don't like how Trump handled his election loss, and they don't like candidates that emphasize it, and they don't want to hear more from him on that. So you would think, if anything, leaning into the legal woes is a better strategy than rerunning the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign playbook. Yeah,
it's interesting. There was a viral clip out of The View that was going around yesterday where Sunny Hostin actually criticized Joe Biden, saying that the thing that got me going, that got me in your camp, even though I was looking at a lot of different candidates in 2020, was your framing the soul of the nation. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that, but let's just go with it.
Okay.
Obviously, that had some kind of appeal to some people. The idea that we were coming out of a divisive era with Donald Trump, and that we were going to bring the country back together, and that Joe Biden was going to be the guy who did it. He wasn't a radical leftist. He was very condemnatory by the time the general election rolled around of the Black Lives Matter protests. He said we needed to fund the cops more. He's building Trump's border wall. He's done a lot of things, whether or not he should have done so, because it doesn't actually earn him any support from the right. But he's done a lot of things to be reaching across the aisle. He was supposed to be the conciliatory bridge building candidate. That was his claim to fame. And she says that the framing he's doing now, which is more MAGA bad, is frankly distasteful to her, even though clearly she's very much a critic of MAGA, because it doesn't feel like that inclusive, positive, more forward-looking strategy that he had back then. And if you have a critic like Sunny Hostin on The View saying something like that, maybe there's That's
a good point. There was a lot of the 2020 campaign for him was about we're all so exhausted. It was the go back to normal. I mean, COVID was part of that. Yeah. There had obviously been a lot of protesting and disruption and rioting, and there was and we had to hear so much from Trump. The daily press conferences. There was an exhaustion, I think, in the country. There's just like, can we go back to a simpler time, a better time, even of like 2 years ago? And you didn't hear a lot from Joe Biden, but he was manifesting that let's just have things be regular again. And it seems like voters don't feel like they got that. And the choice before them is we're going to be exhausted no matter what, because our lives are just exhausting and we still have a lot of problems. So maybe he can't run that campaign again. But I don't know that
rigging the press isn't going to do it.
Haranguing the press to say Trump is a racist more often. I mean, there's no ridiculous. More guaranteed fail strategy than that.
And let's not forget that Hillary Clinton, the Podesta emails exposed how much there was a literal list of friendly journalists that they went to time and time again that generated exactly the kind of coverage that she wanted. And again, it wasn't just about anti-Trump coverage. It was also about rigging the Democratic primary and framing Bernie Sanders in a very particular light, which also backfired and created a cohort of the formerly democratically aligned coalition that is frankly saying, in the wake of especially the conduct in Gaza, no more, I'm never going to vote for a Democrat again. This is what they have sowed. And if he wants to control the discourse, he should consider what it would have meant to have a real primary where he had the nation's focus on him on a debate stage, actually defending what he's done for the past 3 years and articulating his vision for the next 4.
Amen to that. More Rising right after this.